past 47th Street after an earlier crash. This should start to improve now, but at the moment we're still looking at heavy delays. West side of Chicago, northbound Cicero, lanes are blocked at Lake Street due to a rollover collision. Lake Street is partially blocked. The police are directing traffic there. Inbound Kennedy, delays start at Cumberland. It's 33 minutes, O'Hare to downtown. 20 from Montrose, 11 in the Express. The Eisenhower, it's 38 minutes, 390 to downtown. 26 from Wolf. Stevenson, 26 minutes from the Veterans Memorial Tollway to Lakeshore Drive. Bryan is 19 minutes from 95th Street to downtown Chicago. And that's traffic. I'm Jim Talamonte on AM 560 The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Windy with temperatures in the area of 69 today. We'll call it 67. We'll see where we go. Cloudy, breezy, mild, 55 overnight. 64 with showers tomorrow. 44 at O'Hare. Next news coming up at 8. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
From the Matrix Home Solutions Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com.
Mike Madigan runs the Democratic House floor for 30-plus years running. He's promising this and he's stealing that. Where can you get that kind of money? He's using your house like his own piggy bank. You ought to know by now. You can pay off your house here in Illinois, but you can never keep up with the taxes. Oh, how it's always been the plan to have a taxpayer pay, no doubt. Not a matter of if anymore, but when you're moving out.
Dun, dun, dun. Dan and Amy, and that intro music means it's time for our TED Talk, as Amy coined. Ted Dabrowski, president of Wirepoint Inc. And by the way, the Mike Madigan thing, you say, well, Mike Madigan's not speaker anymore.
Yeah, I waited. Chris Welch is the speaker.
No. And please stop singing.
So mean.
I
lost my head voice.
Mike Madigan is a composite figure. He represents the entire political class here, Republicans and Democrats. You know, think about composite figures like Obama's composite figure of all of his girlfriends. You think about it that way. Except our composite figure is real, and never mind. For more on all things Illinois, Ted Dabrowski, President Wirepoints.org. Ted, thanks for joining us again.
Well, thank you guys for having me on today.
All right. So Richard Porter, who is the national committeeman, Republican national committeeman for Illinois, I didn't realize we still had a Republican Party, but apparently we do.
We do.
He writes at realclearpolitics.com, does Illinois government need more money, or does it need to reform how it spends money? This is still the question, bedeviling the state. You know, it's sort of remarkable that this is still a conversation piece. But I suppose he's right. I suppose that it's clear by behavior that you have one party and probably 2/3 of the other party that believes we don't need to reform how we spend money. We just need more of it. And good news for that contingent. More of it is coming. Illinois is scheduled to receive, according to our esteemed senators, Duckworth and Durbin, more than $25 billion directly from the federal government from the COVID relief bill. So the good times will keep on keeping on here then.
Yeah, I think this is one of the more destructive things for Illinois in terms of trying to get change. When we bathe our state with excess of $20 billion in one shot over the next couple of years, it's going to stall every single reform movement we thought we might have. And when you give the Chicago Public Schools, the Chicago Public Schools will get at least $2 billion off of this new money. That's enough to plug a lot of holes in the short term, keep the union happy, fund everything they want, and be able to avoid the real problems that they have. So it's if you're it's just the steroids for spending in CPS and Chicago and the state government.
But what are they going to do with all that money? I mean, honestly, they already have That money, 1.7 billion, on top of 275 million they already received, and they've already put HEPA filtration systems in that cost $100 million. All the mitigations are in place for a safe return to school, which we don't hold your breath. If your kids are in high school, we don't know if that's going to happen. But where does that money go? What is it used toward?
Well, if we talked about this state level government, it'd be great if they just use that to pass major reforms and pay down pensions.
Hilarious.
Of course, that'll never happen. Never happen. If we're talking about CPS, they would do that. They would do summer classes, spend tons of money to get kids caught up again after that year of out of school. That will never happen. So what's going to happen? It's going to go into more programs, which means higher salaries, more spending, and of course bigger pensions. And so the problem will just get bigger, despite the fact that, quote, we're getting help.
And more staff too, because remember, you need to keep cutting people in so you don't have to cut it out. So they're always looking to expand headcount too.
Well, I think that's what's always forgotten in Illinois is that, even when we have pension holidays, right, where the money doesn't go into pensions, where does it go? More staff, more salaries, which means bigger pension debt. So it's always digging a bigger hole all the time on these things.
Hey, Ted, tell us about the Education and Workforce Equity Act that was signed into law yesterday. Amy was there because she's stalking Governor Jelly Belly and his family. But
I'm not stalking. I watched an hour and a half of it, and there's 17 speakers, and not enough time in the day. I had to leave.
I'm sure it was a gala affair. What does that legislation mean? We're going to have better schools and a better jobs climate?
Yeah, I was looking at that, as they were giving that speech, and I was looking at the Illinois report card where you can go in and look at the learning gaps that you have in education between, let's say, blacks and whites, and it's a 40-point gap between, let's call it readiness or meeting and exceeding expectations on reading and on math. It's a 40-point gap, and this is a long in the making failure of Chicago public schools, and I'm talking about Chicago public schools for now. It's a huge gap, and this is in theory meant to address those things, but I think it's just more. It's really just a big equity bill, and I think that's a part of the broader discussion. I was listening to you talk about some of the changes that might come about in Chicago to bring it back, and that's what has to change first and foremost is moving away from the lens of equity for everything, and getting back to, let's call it, merit and competence.
I heard Chris Walsh say yesterday, we have to have kids in Maywood need what kids in River Forest have, and it's about internet access and things like that. And why not just get rid of this and send the kids back to school so we can go back to paper and pencil and actual textbooks?
Well, hey, Ted, how about this as well? How about maybe a jiu-jitsu move here? There's a 40-point gap, you say, in math and reading proficiency. No problem. Let's just stop measuring. Whatever you say the outcomes were for those kids at CPS that you're in charge of, and far be it from me as just some standard issue white guy from the suburbs to comment on these accomplished educators and what they're doing at CPS. Just stop measuring. No problem.
Well, it's interesting because the bill has more measurement, which is for the first time I was surprised by that. They actually want more computer literacy for the kid, like black and brown kids. They want more lab, and so there's a couple of things that read really well. The question is what happens to execution, one, and two. On the other hand, they're not measuring things. They want to measure less and be less demanding. So it's like anything, really confusing because that's what the equity language is.
Well, right, but it seems so. So let me see if I can synthesize this. So let's measure the things we know we can use to demand more money, and let's not measure the things that would potentially cast us in a negative light and perhaps instigate some accountability. So you go wherever we say you go based on your race. You get whatever you want and into wherever you want. But we want to make sure that we understand that you're that we convey that you're a victim so we can get the cash on the front end.
Right. I think you've nailed it. And part if you look at what they're doing across schools is that because it's been such a mess this year, a lot of kids were failing. A lot of kids were getting D's and F's, and so even in places like New Trier, they said they're not going to give out F's anymore. And so, it's really
that is ridiculous.
Speaking of New Trier, sanctified New Trier, and I know you're up on the North Shore there. I'll leave you in your undisclosed location, but generally you're on the North Shore. I saw something the other day that sees New Trier's rankings in Illinois dropping precipitously. Just in Illinois, I mean, this is supposed to be like an internationally renowned school, and they're out of the top 10 in almost every metric in terms of best public schools in Illinois. What's happening?
A very sore subject for schools and places like New Trier, but it's a whole restructuring we're seeing in this state. As we look at education, and the language is getting very confusing, and I think that's hurting places like New Trier, right? If you can't teach anymore based on merit and let's say competence, is what I keep going back to, and you have these broad terms of equity that nobody knows how to define, or it's equity one moment but not equity the next, then you can't help but expect rankings to go down and performance to go down.
I've got some good news potentially on the way on the education front. This was tagged for me by former State Representative Jeannie Ives, who was doing more legislative work than the entire Republican caucus in the House and Senate as a former state legislator. House Bill 234 provides that beginning with the 2021-2020 school year, every public high school may include in its curriculum a unit of instruction on media literacy. And media literacy is will be defined by the state superintendent of education, as well as the materials made available to school boards and ultimately to make their way in the classroom. So this will be another sort of way to get culturally responsive teaching methods into the curriculum at K through 12 under the guise of media literacy, where it's like, listen to everything Don Lemon says and will cut your hands off if you press the remote control and the channel winds up pulling up Fox or OAN or something like this.
Yeah, that's certainly the trend, and we've seen it in every school where you have these agendas to promote that kind of thinking and get away from the traditional thinking of math and science. And I was talking about that 40-point gap between blacks and whites and CPS, and you can't look at education law right now and find things that stress better math skills and better reading skills. They tried to do a little bit of that in the bill that was just passed, but that's really should be the obsession, because again, if you can't read in the third grade, anybody who's studied a little bit of this knows, if you can't read in the third grade, you can't learn after that, and that of course creates the vicious spiral for a lot of kids that then they can't get out of that. So it becomes very difficult.
So you referenced the discussion we had last hour, like, what's one thing, and it could be a small thing, that would encourage you about the future of Chicago and Illinois, that would make you hopeful. What do you say to that question?
Well, I think you were pretty close on it, Dan, when you mentioned Bob Muzikowski, because for me, it's I've said it a different way. We don't think competitively in Illinois. We don't think about how other states attract people and businesses and what it takes to do that. We've forgotten that. Like, we're like a sports team that doesn't care about competing, and and I think some of that would be something like a person coming in and changing the whole equity language. The equity lens, I think, is the most dangerous thing we have right now. And you bring it back to somebody like Bob Muzikowski, who speaks a different level of values, cares about the same brown and black people, and he lives it. And until we change that, we're kind of lost in this world of there's no anchor, and that's the problem. But number two, Dan, I think we have to. I might go the other way. I think we can only get there through a crisis, and that's when people will listen to new language. But it's kind of like the alcoholic until he or she is ready to go to the hospital. There's no changing it. I think we have to get there first.
And until then, drink up. Ted Dabrowski, president of Wirepoint, wirepoints.org, where you get all kinds of good content on Illinois policy-related matters. Ted, thanks for joining us as always.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thanks. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper, hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Since we've all been spending so much time at home, you probably figured out all the ways your house doesn't work for today's new lifestyle. Moving isn't an option, so why not consider remodeling? Maybe you need an open plan kitchen with a school area, a flexible 3 seasons room, or a finished basement. Advanced Design Studio can help you create the reimagined house that works with how your family lives now. Providing positive remodeling experiences for nearly 30 years, Advanced Design's common sense remodeling process makes remodeling predictable, averting delays and preventing budget overruns to produce a rewarding remodeling experience. Join us remotely Saturday, March 27th at 10 a.m. for Virtual Trends in Design, where you can experience hot new colors, learn about home style trends, and discover all the latest products for your home renovation project. Visit AdvancedDesignStudio.com and click on Events to sign up. AdvancedDesignStudio.com and click on Events or call 847-836-2600. That's 847-836-2600.